Hi guys, welcome to Watercolor with me. We're going to do today's painting. We're actually going to do something a little different than what I've been doing. I've been doing mostly dogs and little fluffy portraits, but I got a big project I've been wanting to do for a while. I just finished watching Loki on Disney Plus, and I was a big fan of it. I mean, it's a great show. If you guys really want to go and watch it, you really should. It definitely leads up to the next phase in the Marvel Universe, so it's pretty exciting. But anyway, so our big project today is part one. We're actually doing Lady Loki. I've been wanting to do Lady Loki now for a while, and I think with the pandemic and everything, of course, it was everything got put on hold. So kind of got my inspiration to do it again, and I'm going to be sharing it with you guys, stepping it up a little bit, but that's enough talk from me. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to comment below. I'll try to answer as many as I can on the next video, but this is part one, Lady Loki. So as you can see here, I pretty much drew out the entire thing just because of the sheer size of it. This is actually a 16 by 20 watercolor Coldpress paper. It's my preferred paper to use. It's got that little bit of extra tooth to it, so you have a little bit more of the details whenever you're putting your paint down. So I got my initial drawing. She's actually ready to go. I have my reference photo that I used. The great part about, when you're doing people in general, is you have a lot of free material, free modeling to use on the internet or on social media. I try to ask for permission as much as I can. Hey, I got inspired by your face. Can I use it in one of my paintings? 100% of the time they're like, absolutely. So we're going to use, I found a model. I found somebody online who, she's actually a follower of mine, and she has really great features, and I think she has that sultred look that Lady Loki has. And if you've never seen her, I'm not talking about the little blonde one from the show. I'm talking about the long dark haired comic version. If you don't know who I'm talking about, you need to go look at it. Just type in Google Lady Loki and just look for the long black hair. Enough said. So, okay, so now that I got my drawing set up, we're ready to start painting. So the first brush I'm going to use is my Princeton 1 1/4 flat brush. This covers up a lot of a larger area, and especially since I'm working on a larger area like this, typically typically I work on smaller paper, so I don't use that much. I very rarely do larger pieces, and when I do, do the larger pieces, that's when I need to get the big boys out. So we're going to start out with her flesh tone. Now, a lot of people like to use, make their own flesh tones. I like to keep it simple. I do one base coat, because I like putting my watercolors in layers. And typically, that's how you're supposed to do your watercolors, is you put them in layers. So I just use the basic flesh tone paint. I don't bother going and doing the whole mixing and trying to find it. The only time I do that is if I'm doing smaller pieces, because I don't have to make giant puddles of paint. But so here we go. Now, the one thing with watercolor, especially when you're doing it for the first time, and you're just doing your basic wash, you basically, with the exception of the eyes, you can basically just go over the entire thing. Just go over the entire drawing, because like I said, you're doing this in layers. You know, so it doesn't matter if you get it on the nose or the lips or the mouth, because you can always go over it later. So I recently bought some new equipment to do my YouTube videos like this. I'm really hoping that it works out, because I'm pretty excited about it. You know, it's always good to really step out of your comfort zone and really try new things. And to me, you know, we live in such an information age, so to speak, that it's like, why haven't you done this? Why haven't you done this yet? Kind of a thing. So it's like, okay, I'll do it. Okay. So hopefully you guys can see that. So what we'll do now is basically we're going to let this dry a little bit. Then I'm going to go over it again. And again, you start putting your layers on. So I got the initial, lighter contrast. And I'm going to start building up the darker contrast. You know, the shading, the shadows. Stuff like that. So typically what I do is I still use the same flesh tone. I really water down the first coat, and then what I do is I use less water, more paint, and that's where I get my darker values. So you can automatically kind of see it's darker in some areas. And if you can, I do apologize. I'm still, like I said, I'm still working out on my equipment, but you know, I think this is a good enough place as any to start. You know. So just to kind of plug my website, just kind of to plug all my social media. You know, I'm really hoping you guys really like the video. If you guys come watch the video, share the video with all your friends. Because I'm really excited about this. I'm really excited about doing it. So I have TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, naturally. I got so many, because you never know who's on what platform. So it's like, I'm just going to go on all of them. And I'm probably missing a few too. But I have the links. The links are actually up at the top. You should be able to just click on them, go to my channel. They're right there. Please check them out. Give me a follow. Drop a couple of likes if you happen to like anything that you see. Comment, share with friends, share with enemies. You know, doesn't matter. everybody wins in the end. Yeah. Okay. All right. So for part one, we're really just kind of focused, directly on her face. On the flesh tone. That's the area we're going to focus on today for part one, and then part two we'll just kind of keep gradually going because this is a big project. It is definitely a big project. And it's not going to take an hour. It's going to take a couple of hours. It's like I paint fast, but not that fast. And I want to do it right. Okay, so I think it's pretty much dry. It's at a good drying point. So now what I'm going to start doing is I'm going to start putting in my layers. I'm going to start putting in my contrast. So you can go one of two ways with it. You can go with, a darker brown. Raw sienna is a really good color to have. Burnt umber, that's a really good flesh tone to have. Whenever you're looking at fleshes or when you're looking at faces, there's a lot of different colors in there. There's blues, there's actually greens, reds, different shades of reds. So it's best to, it's painting class 101. Typical art instructors will say, mix in your greens, mix in your blues, depending on the lighting. If you have warmer lighting, you have more greener contrast. If you have cooler lighting, you have more bluer contrast. So it just kind of depends on what lighting scheme that I want to go with. I taught myself pretty much how to do everything. I read a ton of books. One way is not better than another one. You use the fundamentals and you create your own style. That's the great part about being an artist. You just create your own thing. Being an artist is magical. It really, really is. So now I'm starting off with kind of a yellow ochre. I'm mixing it in with my flesh tone just to kind of make it a little bit more darker, a darker flesh tone. My next brush that I'm using is my Kolinsky Sable number 6. These are excellent brushes to have. They hold a ton of water. Ton of water. Now the one thing with me, especially when I'm doing watercolors or portraits of any kind, whether it be a dog, person, stuff like that, I'm not trying to go for photorealism. That's not my style. I don't like that style. I like the messiness of it. I kind of like just the layer. To me, that looks better. That looks a whole lot better. So, if you're coming in here expecting to see like a photograph, of this person, like, oh, it's so photoreal, you're not going to see it. So what I did there is I like to blend in my paint. So I typically have a dry brush or a wet brush, depending on my needs and wants at the time. And typically what I do is when I put my first layer down, I take my second brush, and in this case it's my angular brush. I don't know if you guys can see that, my angle brush, and I just blend it in together. Blending it all in. Just kind of gives it more of a final look. Okay, I think it's looking pretty good so far. If it does look a little light, again, I'm sorry. It'll start looking more like a painting. Because sometimes videos just don't do justice to the artwork that's sitting in front of you. You know, because like I said, you're looking at a screen, and some people are watching this on their phone. You know, luckily you can zoom in, but when you're going in and doing the basic initial layering phase, you do have some give or take and some liberties because you're just starting. So we're going to let that dry for a quick second. But going back to Loki, I really liked the show. I thought it was really good. Definitely wasn't expecting it. Definitely came across as very unique and original, even though I'm sure it's not. But I liked it. Okay. So we're just going to keep going in with our layering. Now we're going to go to some darker tones. I'm going to switch brushes up. I'm going to start using my angular brushes. The great part about the angle brush is you can actually cover a larger area, but you can cover a smaller area at the same time. So because of the fine tip point. Right there. So you can get the fine details, but you can also get larger area. Let's see. So we're going to use, I'm going to keep it a little cooler tone, so I'm going to add a little bit of blue. Now the one thing I will say is I always try to let your layers dry before you go and start adding, because you will end up getting blotches, kind of like I'm pretty much doing now, even though you probably can't see it. Oh, what are you talking about? It looks great. No, I'm already disappointed with it, but I mean, that's just the true artist to me, I guess. That's why when I do larger paintings, I typically don't try to get them all done in one sitting, because I want to be able to do it correctly. I want to be able to take my time with it, because this is a kind of a bigger piece. You know, this is a bigger piece. This isn't just like one of my little ones and I can get done in 5 minutes. I want to be able to take my time with it. You know, most of the time people can just knock it out. Now acrylic painting, it's really easy, in a way, not to diss acrylic painters. You know, let me just get that out there now. But acrylic painting, it's a lot easier. There's a little bit more give and take. That one, because it dries so fast, so you're able to put your layers on really quickly. You know, you're able to put your layers on really quickly, and you can move on to the next one. Whereas watercolor, you know, it's water. So, one, it doesn't really dry as fast, so you've got to take your time with that, otherwise you'll ruin it. So typically now what happens is before I move on, I want to let this dry a little bit. You know, I want to be able to let it dry so that I can put more layers on later on. So we're going to leave this alone for now. I got a little bit more time on it, so what we're going to do now is just going to move on to something else. And that's why I always do things in sections, so to speak, so that I can let one thing dry, then I can move on. So I move on to the next thing, and then I can go back to what I was working on. So in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do her hair. You know, we're going to just get it real simple, just a quick wash, and try not to let it bleed onto the flesh tone or the skin tone. But that would just be awful. So I know what a couple of you are thinking. It's more like hey, people's hair don't look like that. Again, layers. I'm not liking the way it is either, but it's a start. The one thing that you'll notice, one problem that you'll notice is it's always when is a good time to stop and move on to the next thing. Because if you overdo it and you're trying to get something done quickly, you'll find that you'll mess it up faster. And I'm saying that from, experience. You try to rush to get a painting done, and there's nothing worse than, you're really, really super, super, super happy with it, and then all of a sudden, because you rushed and you were trying to get it done really fast, you mess it up. And then you have to start over. That's painful. And the reason it's painful for me is because I don't start over unless I really, really want to paint it. If I mess up on it, that's it. I'm not doing it again. If I couldn't do it right the first time, I'm not going to do it right the second time. But that's just me. Okay. All right, guys. Well, I think that will do it for today. So I'm gonna let this dry. Her face is still kind of a little wet, so I don't want to risk it. But so we're going to. I'm gonna pause it for today and pick this up again next time. Thank you guys for joining me. Remember, go like all my social medias, like, follow, share, everything like that. And I'll see you next time.